He was prepared to find the salesman in a random subway station, chase him down, hold a gun to him, be like, bring me to your leader. And he thought that was gonna work, so whatever. Hello everyone, it's Hara in Korea, and today is Sunday, December 29th. And the video that I wanted to make for you guys today is I'm going to be giving my opinion about Squid Game Season 2. So before I start, I want to say that I very much loved Season 1 of Squid Game. I was so excited when I heard that Season 1 of Squid Game was going to be coming out because I had just finished Season 1 of Alice in Borderland, and if you have not watched Alice in Borderland, that just takes the cake on all death game shows for me. It is, in my opinion, by far way superior to Squid Game. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Alice in Borderland, we're here to talk about Squid Game. And Squid Game Season 1, I will say, I thought they did a phenomenal job. I thought the characters were relatable. The social issues were very relatable, you know, willing to do anything for money because you're just at the end of your rope. The games left you on the edge of your seat. I loved watching the games, and I also loved how Squid Game Season 1 had such a global audience. So people who were not that familiar with Korean culture could learn about Korean children games, and I just thought Season 1 was really well done and they did an amazing job. With that being said, I was not expecting Season 2 to be better than Season 1. I also knew that the point of Season 2 was not the games. So my expectations were a little bit different, but overall I feel like Season 2 did not live up to my very low expectations, and overall for me as a whole, it was not a good show. And before I get into my full opinion about Season 2, I do want to state there are going to be spoilers. If you have not watched Season 2 yet, I would go do that first before watching this video. I'm just going to talk about my opinion, so if I say something that spoils it for you, like, you should go watch the show first. This video, the goal is not to tell the entire story of the show, it's just to tell my opinion. So if you haven't watched Season 2 first, then you're gonna be very confused about what I'm talking about.
I don't know what the fuck are you talking about.
So anyway, if you have watched it, then let's get started. So first, going into Season 2, I already unsure about how it was gonna go. I really liked Season 1, but I didn't like how it ended because Gi-hun, the main character, you know, he won all this money. Of course he's traumatized, you know, can't blame him for that. But he is on the way to go meet his daughter. You went into these games to get money, to pay off this enormous amount of debt you have, to be able to have money to provide for your daughter, or at least, you know, spend time with her. You know, you were feeling like a terrible dad in Season 1. And at the end of Season 1, you're finally going to go visit your daughter. And then he just turns around, he's like, nope, not doing that. And so I was already like annoyed at the end of Season 1 because, bro, just go be a good dad. You know, come back to Korea later and do your whole hero mission, but just go be a good dad for just a couple of days. So I was already mad going into Season 2. Gi-hun couldn't even go be a good dad for a couple of days, right? And then we get into Season 2 and he calls his daughter. It's been 3 years. You can't even talk to your daughter. Instead, you're just breathing on the phone to her. Like, how creepy is that? So I was already mad going into Season 2, but I was like, you know, that's the plot they decided to go with. They needed to continue the story for the money, of course. So I tried to ignore that part. But watching the trailers of Season 2, I was just starting to think like, is this just gonna be copy and paste of Season 1? Because we saw the doll again. I was like, are they just gonna do the same exact games? So I was a little bit worried about going into Season 2. I assumed I wasn't gonna like it that much. With that being said, there are some things I loved about Season 2 that make it watchable, that make certain parts of it enjoyable. And so I'm not saying everything's bad. So we're gonna talk about the good things first. So the first thing that I thought Season 2 did so well, my favorite character in Season 2 was the salesman, the recruiter, whatever you want to call him, Gong Yu's character. His scenes in Season 2 were by far my favorite scenes in the entire season. And Gong Yu's character was only on screen for a brief amount of time, but I feel like they utilized his character so well. He is a very popular, well-known actor, and so of course he's gonna do a good job. A scene that really stood out to me was the bread and the lottery scene when the salesman goes to the park where there's a bunch of homeless people and he offers them bread or a lottery ticket.
선물은 하나, 빵과 복권. 둘 중 하나만 선택하실 수 있습니다.
And majority of the homeless people pick the lottery ticket. And he's sitting there with a smile on his face, like watching them lose the lottery or whatever. And people watching him are confused, like, what is this man doing? Is he like a good person? Like, is he really trying to give these homeless people a chance? And I really liked that scene. After he had talked to majority of the homeless people in the park and majority of them picked the lottery ticket, I loved the scene where he dumps all the bread on the ground, he's stomping on the bread, crushing it. The homeless people are like, how are you wasting such good food? And the salesman's like, I didn't do this, you guys did this, like this is your fault, this is what's wrong with society, like you guys are starving, but you would pick the lottery ticket, you would take a chance instead of taking this bread, which is right here in front of you, and you know you will have a sustainable meal and you won't be hungry for that period of time, but instead you guys picked the lottery ticket and this is the problem. Like it seemed like he was trying to prove a point to himself or to the homeless people, I don't know, but the way that scene was filmed, I loved how he was stomping on the ground. I loved the moment when he like slicks his sweaty hair back and he like gives this crazy insane smile and then he's fixing his suit like, I'm not crazy. I love that scene. I thought that scene was so well done. I guess I would say that was my third favorite scene. My second favorite scene was the rock, paper, scissors game that the salesman was leading with the two people who are working for Gi-hun. To me, that game was more interesting than the games that were in the actual Squid Games. I was on the edge of my seat that game.
두 손으로 가위바위보를 하고 하나만 빼서 남은 걸로 승부를 겨루는 게임. 지는 분은 물론 벌칙이 있습니다.
아마 영화에서 보신 적이 있으실 겁니다. 러시안 룰렛이라고.
But as the two men who were captured were playing rock, paper, scissors, and then the one who loses has to play Russian roulette, and just the actors did such a good job. I felt their fear. I was thinking in my head, like, how traumatizing would that be to hear the click of the gun go off? And then you hear the click and you're like, oh my gosh, did I just die? And then you realize you're not dead, but then literally 3 seconds later, you have to play rock, paper, scissors again, and you could potentially die in like 3 seconds. It was just filmed so amazingly, and I felt like I was sitting in the chair with those two men. Like, just playing that once, just one round, you're traumatized for life. You've already experienced thinking you're dead. That scene was so good. And the only scene that topped that one for me was the scene where the salesman and Gi-hun were playing Russian roulette. I also very much enjoyed that scene. I felt like both of the actors did such an amazing job. So Gi-hun is over here like telling the salesman, you're just the game maker's dog. You just follow everything they do. You have no idea what it's like to be a poor person like me. You have no idea what I went through. And you can just see the salesman's face, like getting all this emotion into it. And then he tells the story about how he used to be one of the people in the red suits. He used to be the one killing people. And at one point his dad was in the game and he just shot his dad. And as he's telling the story with like his eyes getting like wet, you start to think like, this man is crazy. He killed his dad. But then you're also like, there's more to this story here. This man must know a little bit about how Gi-hun feels, because for him to have been one of the people in the red suits, for him to have killed his dad, for him to be sitting here with tears in his eyes, playing this Russian roulette game fairly, you know there's more to the story. And it was just insane to me. After that scene, I'm like, okay, well now I want to know more about the people in the red suits. So I think they did that phenomenally. You now start to understand that the people in the red suits are also like out here struggling too. So that was one thing I found interesting. I liked how they used the North Korean defector. She was one of the people in the red suits, but she needed to get money to save her daughter, right? So I really liked how once you learn that her character is one of the people in the red suits, you can then kind of go back and think about Gong Yu's character, the salesman. Okay, so maybe he did understand a little bit about how Gi-hun felt. Like, of course, salesman is still a terrible, terrible person. He should not be out here killing people. He should not be out here like recruiting people for this game. We don't justify those actions. But you start to think, well, he must have been going through a lot too. Like, he must understand what it's like to be poor or have a lot of struggle in his life. I really liked that connection. Another thing I thought they did well was I liked the introduction of the transgender character. I felt like her character was unique. I felt like her character was different. Her character was a boss and so brave. She was out here giving people confidence left and right. You know, at the end when she was just the bravest out of all of those people, loved her character. The third thing I thought they did well was I thought they did a good job of casting Top. So when Top's character Thanos came on the screen and immediately just started speaking English, I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so cringy. But after an episode, I actually really enjoyed Top's character. They just gave this man a costume and they were like, go out there, do whatever you want. And that is literally what he did. He was out there skipping, dancing around, throwing English lines in there left and right. I don't even think they gave him a script. Like, he was just out there playing himself. I loved when they were on the merry-go-round game and he was doing, you know, his dance. I thought a lot of his lines were cringy. I definitely got some goosebumps as he was saying some of them, but I also just really appreciated that he was just out there playing himself. And the fact that they made him a retired rapper, I loved it. I loved his character. I thought he was hilarious. The fourth thing thing I liked about the show was I thought some of the games were really good. Like I said before, I was super worried that they were just gonna copy and paste the games. And I was like, there's no way they can do that. They can't just use the same games over and over again. But then when they started with the red light, green light game again, I was like, no, are they really just gonna do this again? So I literally sighed a sigh of relief when they got to the second game and it was the mini games. And I actually liked the mini games. I thought this is really interesting because it gives, you know, the global audience a chance to see what Korean kid games were like. And I've played a lot of those games myself, so I was able to connect with the characters because I know I could not play any of those games. I would have died in every single one. Every time I played Dakji, can't do it. The spinning top game, couldn't even imagine getting a top to spin like that. I forget what the game is called, but the one where they throw the pieces in the air and have to catch them all. I have tried playing that game before. I can't even pick up one piece and catch it. So just imagining myself in those games, I would have died. I would have gotten my team killed. Maybe I could have done the flying stone game, but who knows, you know? So I did enjoy the mini games. Of course, the spinning merry-go-round game was so interesting. I actually played that game a lot with my kids at my hagwon. What we do is we get hula hoops, we sing a song. When we stop singing, I call out a number. They have to get the group together and get in the hula hoop depending on what number I say. And I was not expecting them to put that game in the show. And so I was like, oh my gosh, like I play this game. So interesting to see. That was a very intense game. So I thought that those are the things that Squid Game season 2 did very well. Of course, there were some other things that they did well, but those were my top moments of Squid Game season 2 that I very much enjoyed and that made the show watchable for me. And even if I don't like a show per se, or even if I think the season didn't do that well, if there's good moments in the show, you know, I can kind of salvage it. You know, I could kind of make it worth watching. So I do feel like there were a lot of good moments and there were some good characters and some things that make the show worth watching. Now, to get into the things that I did not like about season 2, I am gonna try to keep it not too long since this video is probably getting pretty long. Okay, number one, I was upset with Gi-hun for not even communicating with his daughter. Like, of course, you're probably thinking, what can I even say to her? But at least call her on the phone. Like, all of season 1, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm such a bad dad. And then season 2, you really, you know, hammer that in like, yeah, I'm a bad dad, you know? So I was a little bit upset about that. The second thing I was upset about was, in the beginning, it didn't really make sense what Gi-hun was trying to do. He had no police help. He's hiring these people on his own. And I'm just questioning, like, how did he think he was gonna take down an entire corporation of these powerful, rich people, right? Like, I'm curious, did he like think this through, how this was gonna work? He was prepared to find the salesman in a random subway station, chase him down, hold a gun to him, be like, bring me to your leader. And he thought that was gonna work, so whatever. We just have to skip over some parts of the plot that don't really make sense. The next thing that I really disliked, it really did just feel like a copy and paste of season 1, especially the characters. So I feel like when Korea, you know, likes a trend, they hook their teeth into it and they think, we love this trend, we are not gonna change anything about this trend because it worked so well last time, why would we change something, right? But change can be good, and I feel like it needed some change, especially in terms of the characters. Now, I did mention some characters that I thought were good, right? But there were just too many characters that were way too similar. For example, in season 1, I don't remember the character's number or name, so we're just gonna put a picture here. There was a crazy lady, you know, or at least a lady that everybody presumed to be crazy. She was really strange, really weird. Everybody kind of was weirded out by her. And then we get to season 2, you have the exact same character in the shaman lady, and I'm like, to a T, it just felt like I was watching the same character over again, and it was a little bit frustrating. You have the big boss guy in season 1 who was just being a bully to everybody, and then you have this Ajashi boss guy in season 2 who's just being a bully to everybody. So you have the old man who was player number 1, who was one of the powerful rich people in the games who just wanted to play the games for fun. And then season 2, you have the front man, the head game maker, whatever you want to call him, as player number 1. So I'm like, why are they making it the same? You then have Gi-hun's friend is in the game again, another friend. Like, it all felt too much copy and paste. So that was a bit annoying to me. I understand maybe you have some similar characters, but they were all way too similar. It was really frustrating me a lot. The next thing that really frustrated me was I felt like every episode, once they got into the games, was the exact same. Like, I felt like I was watching the same episode over and over again with just some slight variations. And what I mean by that is, once they got into the games, it was game, voting time, people voting, yelling at each other, and then the episode's finished. You know, we might go see what's happening on the boat or with the other characters, right? And the first time after they finish a game and it's time to do the voting, I totally understand why they made the voting scene so long. The thing that did frustrate me a little bit was that the people in the red suits were like, we are not gonna let anybody infringe infringe on your right to the democratic voting process. But then in the later episodes, they keep allowing everybody to infringe on everybody's democratic right to vote. It was frustrating me so much. So the first voting scene, I understand that, you know, it's the first time they're voting. But as the episodes continued and there kept being voting scenes, it was 15 to 20 minutes of them doing this voting scene. And I didn't feel like it needed to be that long after the first time. You know, before they vote, you know, everybody's talking in a little huddle like, oh my gosh, how are we gonna get people to vote yes? How are we gonna get people to vote no? Oh my goodness, should we count everybody? How many votes for yes do we have? How many votes for no do we have? And then you get to the voting process, you watch everybody pretty much walk up there and vote, and then people in the back being like, oh, that guy better vote yes or he's in big trouble. It was just so annoying how they dragged out the voting process every single time. And I do understand, you know, after the game, there needs to be a vote, but I just feel like after the first vote, they could have really shortened that down to like 2 to 3 minutes of voting time. I didn't feel like it needed to be half the episode every single time. And I know I'm exaggerating a little bit, but it really felt like it was half the episode most of the time, and it was really starting to frustrate me. The next thing that really bothered me was the policeman, and this is a guy who got shot in season 1 by his brother, who was the front man of the games. He's out here dedicated to finding this island, ending these games, helping these people. At least that's what I thought his mission was. Maybe he only cared about saving his brother. I don't know, but you've now learned your brother is evil. Why not just tell the people, like especially Gi-hun, you have dedicated yourself to being like, I'm gonna help you, Gi-hun. We're gonna find this island together. We're gonna stop these games together. Why not just tell Gi-hun, yes, that is my brother. I do know that man, okay? I know who's in charge of these games. And I do understand that they would not have had a season, or they could have still had a season, but maybe it would have messed up their plot a little bit. But it really frustrated me a lot that he was out here lying, but also wanting to help put an end to the games. Make it make sense, you know? When he first lied, I wasn't expecting the front man to be in the games, but wow, would that have saved poor Gi-hun so much stress and time, you know? So that was frustrating. But yeah, continuing on, another thing that really bothered me was the ending of the show. And not the complete ending, but the last episode or two. Okay, so I don't remember if it was episode 6 or 7, but they take their final vote. It's a tie. We all know what's gonna happen. Okay, the people who voted yes or the people who voted no, they're gonna start killing each other to be able to get their side to have more numbers, right? We expected that. The thing that annoyed me was that Gi-hun started developing this master plan that it seemed like he really did not think through at all. First, it felt like Gi-hun, when he came into these games the second time, he was determined to 1, put an end to these games, and 2, try to save as many people as he could. So in the final episodes, when he is telling his group of people about this plan that he has to take the guns from the people in the red suits, and he basically says to his 15-ish people, okay, when this giant fight starts, when they turn all the lights out at bedtime, we need to get under the beds and hide, and the O team is gonna come over and try to murder the X team, and we just gotta let that happen, okay? We just gotta let those people up there die, and we're not gonna do nothing about it. If we go up and help, we might die too, okay? And we need to take the guards by surprise. We need to jump them. We can't get involved in this fight. And this just seemed completely against Gi-hun's character. Even player number 1, the front man, seemed a little surprised. He's like, so you're saying we need to sacrifice these people for the greater good? And Gi-hun's like, yes, we do. Gi-hun came into these games trying to be like, we gotta put an end to them and we gotta make sure all these people don't die. And so towards the end, when he was like, we gotta let all these people die, sorry, for the greater good. No, I'm not saying I could have come up with a better plan, but it just didn't seem like Gi-hun's character to willingly let people die. Just a few minutes before that, one of the people on the X team had suggested, well, why don't we just go over and murder some of the O team people first so that when the vote happens again tomorrow, our team wins and there's no tie. And Gi-hun's like, no, if we do that, we are no better than the guards. We're no better than the game makers. We're not doing that. So instead, you're just gonna hide under the beds and let your X team die. I mean, to be completely honest, I'm not saying the X team should have went over and started killing the O team because that's not good either. But it seemed like Gi-hun was like, we have got to vote X. You know, we have got to get out of these games. And I feel like he could have gotten out of the games if enough people had voted X, and then he could have regrouped and thought about how to end these games from the outside, like thought about a new plan, right? But instead he's like, we're just gonna let people die up there. Okay, whatever. So the lights go out, it's bedtime. Of course, the O team comes over, they start murdering the X team. And as was mentioned, the X team has more women and older people on the team, so they're dying up there, you know? And after a bunch of people get murdered and the lights come back on, the guards come in to break up the fight, and Gi-hun and his people are laying on the ground. When the guards come to check them, they jump them, they take the guns, and according to Gi-hun, everything's going according to plan. You know, everything's going well. This is what he wanted. And so he tries to gather people. We need to go find the game center. We need to go kill these people. But my question is, like, Gi-hun was dragging all the people who went with him, he was dragging them to their death because he should have thought about this. There are 456 players in the game. Don't you think there would be double that amount of guards with triple the amount of weapons, and they have the cameras to watch you guys to see where you're coming from? So I really don't know what his plan was, and I feel like he could have really thought this out better. Who can use a gun? Okay, I've got about 10, 15 people here. We're gonna go attack hundreds of guards with way more guns and extra bullets than us. So, you know, to my surprise, they actually get pretty far. They almost get to the game center. I was a little frustrated during this scene. I was starting to, you know, stop watching a little bit, you know, lose my focus. But the one thing I do want to say about the scene that it did do well was, again, Hyunju, the transgender character, total boss. Loved everything she did in this scene. So, of course, as we could have all predicted, the plan just starts going completely downhill. You know, they start running out of bullets. One character is supposed to go back and get more bullets from the dead guards. That character has PTSD, freaks out, can't do it. Hyunju tries to go back and get the bullets. By that time, it's too late. You know, Gi-hun and his friend get pretty close to the game center, but they're stopped by more guards, as we could have predicted. And everything's just going downhill for Gi-hun here, which we all could have predicted. Of course, the front man, this is his time to, you know, go back to being the front man. So he kills the two people that were with him and then tells Gi-hun, hey, sorry, bro, plan didn't go well. I'm dead. And then he comes out and he shoots Gi-hun's friend. And of course, I feel bad for Gi-hun's friend. I feel bad for everybody who went on this, you know, suicide mission with him. But at the same time, like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, this whole scene didn't make sense because the only person who came into these games to end them was Gi-hun. So it was actually quite surprising that he was able to quickly change 10 to 15 people's minds who their main reason for coming here was to get money and go home. So their better bet would have been maybe to kill a couple of the O people and hope and pray that the next morning their team would be able to win and go home with some money. They did not come here on this grand mission to end the game. But within a matter of like 15 minutes, Gi-hun is able to convince all these people, like, you don't need this money. We need to go attack the game center. We need to go attack the people in charge of these games. And he was able to convince, again, I don't know exactly how many, 10 to 15 people to do this. And I know they're stressed. I know they don't have a lot of time to think things through. I know maybe the people who decided to follow Gi-hun, they're like, okay, well, the X team is not gonna win. So if we don't attack the game center, we're gonna have to play another game tomorrow, which means we might die. You know, we have a high chance of dying. So maybe they thought, like, it's better to go attack the game center, you know, bring down the games. And even though we go home with $0, at least we get to go home, right? So maybe that's how they were thinking. But it's just insane to me that he was able to convince all these people to do this. And even if they had gotten to the game center and they kill everybody in the game center, which would have been mission impossible. But let's say they do that. What about the rich people who are watching these games? Did you think about them? You know, there has to be more people in charge. There has to be more higher ups. So the games would never really end. And it's just literally posing the question, like, as long as there are people who are suffering enough and desperate enough for money, these games are going to continue. So, I mean, that's a big societal question that's very difficult to answer, and who could expect Gi-hun to solve that problem on his own? But he fully thought he was going to do that with the 10, 15 people he had, and instead he just got majority of those people murdered. And I don't really know what Gi-hun's plan was, and I know his plan got sabotaged throughout. Like, he had a tracker in his tooth, the tracker got pulled out. That would have helped him a lot. He did hire people to come and find him with guns who could have maybe attacked from the outside, but that plan went downhill. So I do think he tried his best, but you know, sometimes your best isn't good enough. And yeah, so again, I did not like season 2. I do understand that season 2 is basically like part 1 because season 3 comes out in 2025, and I am hoping season 3 is better than season 2. And my expectations for season 3 are a little bit different because I know, like, it's a part 2, right? We're not gonna have like all the games. We've already been introduced to the characters, so we're probably not gonna get any new characters, things like that. But I'm just hoping that they can wrap it up in some type of decent way. And I have no idea how Gi-hun could ever end these games, but maybe I'll be surprised. But again, I am not saying that I hated season 2. I just did not particularly like it, but I do think it is worth watching. There are moments I enjoyed watching the show. Okay, there are moments where I was like, oh, this is funny. Like, this is really emotional. I really like these scenes. So there are a lot of good parts of the show, but overall as a whole, it wasn't my favorite. If I had to give it a Rotten Tomatoes score, I would give season 1 85 to 90%. I loved season 1. I would give season 2, originally I said 45 to 50%, but I'm gonna give it a 50%, okay? I feel like there are moments that were enjoyable to watch. And for me, if I go on Rotten Tomatoes and I'm looking for a movie or a show and I see that it has a 50% or above, that means it's watchable for me. That means, you know, it's not that great, but there's some redeeming qualities and it's worth giving it a watch. So I'm hoping that season 3 comes in with a good 65 to 70%. That's what I'm hoping for. But yeah, I did enjoy watching some parts of it, and that's just my opinion about the show. If you guys had a different opinion, please let me know in the comment section down below. Sometimes when I read how other people viewed certain scenes or certain characters, my opinion starts to change because I'm like, I didn't think about it that way, you know? So if you liked the show a lot, please let me know why. You know, if there are certain characters you like, certain scenes you really like. If I said something that you didn't agree with because you had a different view of it, let me know in the comment section down below, because I really wanted to like season 2. I really did. And it just wasn't my favorite, you know, but I am willing to hear other people's opinions. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agreed with what I said, if you didn't agree with what I said, just let me know in the comment section down below so we can have a discussion. And let me know your predictions for season 3. I'm very interested to hear those as well. You know, we don't have to wait. Hopefully it comes out maybe like summertime. I don't know. I don't want to wait too long. But yeah, if you like that video, please let me know in the comment section down below. If you're not subscribed, please make sure to go ahead and do that. And make sure to give this video a like, and I'll see you guys later. Bye!